Welcome to Red and Yellow, the podcast about all things to do with refereeing at grassroots level, looking at the laws of football, speaking to guests and trying to help you become a better referee, with Adam Humphreys and me, Ed Connell.
Hello, it's Adam here and welcome to this episode of Red or Yellow. I just wanted to jump on here before the episode started to remind you to please send us in your questions about anything refereeing, and that way we can hopefully help you improve your game as well as help all of the listeners improve their games as well. It's always nice to hear your opinions and views on things, so please send those in. You can do that via email, that's redorYellowpod@gmail.com, or find us on Instagram, it's at redorYellowpod. Added to that, if you would subscribe to the podcast, that would mean an awful lot to us. And then that way, our meandering chats about refereeing will magically appear on your phone whenever we release a new episode. And lastly, all views expressed on this podcast are that of myself, Adam Humphreys, and not that of Football Queensland. Now that's all done, let's get on with the show. Hello, Ed.
Hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm not too bad at all. I mowed my lawn yesterday, which was a 2.5-hour job on a ride-on lawnmower. And if you'd have told me 5 years ago I'd be riding a ride-on lawnmower, I would not have believed you. So feel like I'm living my best Australian life.
Who's lent you a ride-on lawnmower?
My next-door neighbour, because the grass was getting a little bit shocking and we're worried about snakes. Just one of those things about living in this wonderful country.
Your garden is very big, though, isn't it? How big is your garden?
Our whole plot is 2.5 acres.
And I mean, that's a lot of grass. And talking about snakes, your wife posted a picture of a snake hanging down from the roof of your house or something.
Yeah, kind of like the veranda, I suppose you could call it. Yeah, that was a carpet python. Probably not very lethal to humans, but quite lethal to small animals. And we just got a dog. We got Hugo. So, we was a bit concerned about that, but we haven't seen it since.
Good. Well, because I always tell people, don't worry about things like that. You never see them in Australia. And then, of course, you post a picture of it hanging from the roof of your house, which is obviously not ideal.
Of course I do.
And we should say that one of the things that's come out of last week's show, and first of all, the most remarkable thing is I can say last week's show because we haven't been able to say that for a long time.
I know.
But one of the remarkable things that came out of last week's show is not only did we have a great guest in Terry, who gave us a great insight into the promotion route, and who's going to come back hopefully and tell us more about it later on the season, but he's now become the producer of our show.
We have a producer.
We have a producer, and the benefits to the listeners, for those who are thinking, well, what are the benefits to listeners? Well, the first benefit is Terry said, you need to get recording more often. So here we are a week later. The second benefit for the listeners is Terry said to us, your episodes are too long. So we're going to endeavour to try and keep this episode down to about 45 minutes.
Which was ironic because he spent a good 40 minutes on the last episode just narrowing.
Exactly. Most of it was him talking last week, to be fair. And also, the week we decided we're going to try and keep it down to 45 minutes, the week with probably the most refereeing news in the last 7 days, and we've had in the last year. So it's going to be a bit of a sort of fast overview of the week's news, and there's an awful lot of news. So should we go straight into the news? Which news story? I mean, I'll tell you now. Well, the listeners will know. I've obviously prepared for the podcast, and I'm sitting here with a whole load of notes. You're presumably going to be winging it again.
What do you mean again? I am nothing but just like. It's my life. I don't need to write notes. I just know stuff.
I think our law listeners know by now, Adam, as to who's the prep and the brains behind this operation.
Well, I think if you was to go on our general occupations, actor, personal trainer, and what you do for a living, I think it makes sense that you take notes.
Anyway, which news topic do you want to go to first? Because
I think we should probably cover the big one first, which is undoubtedly Turkey.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Turkey is probably the most important referee news over the last week, particularly in light of the way we sort of shone the spotlight on abuse towards referees. Well, I suspect most of our listeners will have seen this, but it was a football match in the Turkish league. And I think what happened was that there was a 97th minute equaliser in a match, and I think it was the president of the club who was on the receiving end of that sort of final goal came on the pitch at the end of the game and, without saying anything, walked straight up and just swung a big right hook at the referee. I mean, the pictures are terrible. Not only the pictures of the sort of impact and the referee going to the ground, but sort of the black eye that almost emerged almost straight away.
And then also someone else from the club comes round the other side and kicks the referee while he's down. Like, literally kicks the referee while he's down. Yeah, no,
that's right. There was some he received several blows, apparently it said, and he got injuries, including a minor fracture during this incident, which is just absolutely shocking. I mean, it's what's so frightening for me. It's not surprising, but it is frightening. We talk about the vulnerabilities of sort of refs on the sort of pitches each weekend at grassroots level because, you know, in terms of protection, you don't have CCTV. People aren't normally filming what's going on. If something happens afterwards, it's, you know, one person's word against another. But the fact that someone's prepared to walk onto a match that was being televised and to do this, I mean, it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, the best thing of all that's come out of it is the reaction, I suppose, of the sort of Turkish FA and the governing bodies around the world who've all expressed their complete and utter outrage at what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the bit that stunned me the most with this was when I saw it. The first thing I kind of saw was not necessarily his black eye or anything, but it was a FIFA badge. This is a FIFA official. And it kind of felt a bit like a watershed moment. It kind of felt like, well, look, you know, the grassroots bunch just kind of half expected, but the fact it happened on a FIFA official, like, that's, you know, this guy is he can referee in the Champions League. I think he referees for UEFA. He's probably the most or second most senior referee in the country, and he was physically assaulted. Like, that really shocked me. And then obviously we watched the footage, and that shocked me even further. And the other thing that's absolutely crazy about it is, like, we watched the highlights, and he had a great game. Like, there was nothing in the game. There was nothing in the game that would suggest he was a bit harsh. You know, from the team that attacked him, he sent the player off for first yellow card was abuse, second yellow card was something else. Or dissent, second yellow card was something else, and it was all seemed fair and nothing more. So it would be very interesting to know what the president's justification, not that there is a justification, but what sent him over the edge to do such a thing.
But I don't even think he had done anything wrong in relation to. I don't think sort of referee's decision was anyway to responsible for the equaliser. I mean, it's just the fact that it came very late on in the game, and the reality is 97th minute these days is, as we all know, becoming more and more the norm. But I mean, the reaction was unsurprisingly, I think that all league matches were postponed indefinitely. I don't know whether that has been changed at all since then, and the Turkish FA chairman quite rightly said that night that the attack is a night of shame for Turkish football. Yeah. And again, Gianni Infantino, a bit of a controversial figure himself, but the FIFA president came out and reminded everybody without match officials, there's no football, and referees, players, fans, and staff have to be safe and secure to enjoy the game. And it's also been met with sort of the same reaction from governing bodies around the world and from the professional refereeing body in the UK as well. So that's big news. What was your?
Well, I just wanted to say, just before we move on, I think it goes without saying that we wish. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but Halil.
Yeah,
if you're listening, we hope you have a speedy recovery.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And let's hope we don't see anything like that happening again. Absolutely. Next piece of news on the home front, or certainly my home front, Adam, we've got two big appointments, that very newsworthy appointments in the Premier League over the Christmas period. I can't believe I'm quite saying this because it's 2023, we're about to go into 2024, but we are going to have the first Premier League game ever refereed by a woman.
Yes.
I mean, it is remarkable, isn't it, that has
deservedly so.
Now.
She did a great job at the Women's World Cup, and she gets a Premier League debut, which would be great. One thing I have found quite amazing about that is how quickly people have forgotten Sian Massey. I know she didn't referee; she was only an assistant, but like, this wouldn't have happened without Sean Massey getting, onto the line in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's very true.
And, everyone's like, oh, this is amazing. But equal to that, you have to pay tribute to the Trailblazers that went before as well as part of the conversation. And some of the commentary around it's been quite shocking. Oh, what's the point in putting her in there because it might get the players into trouble for being sexist? Well, here's an idea. How about you just don't be sexist? How about you just, it's ridiculous.
The reason why it's taken so long for us to have a female referee is because of the problems within the game of football. So those sorts of reactions really aren't a big surprise. But
Absolutely.
Rebecca Welch is going to referee the Fulham Burnley game on the 23rd of December.
Congratulations, Rebecca.
She was the first female ref to referee in the Championship as well in January of this year. And she has been a fourth official on the Premier League. She did that, I think, last month. But so that's great news.
But she's gone from the Championship. She's gone from the Championship to the Premier League in less than a calendar year. That's phenomenal. Yeah. Great work, Rebecca. Well done.
Impressive. And the other, again, equally sort of shocking, but still welcome, is the fact that the referee Sam Allison has been appointed to referee the Sheffield Luton Boxing Day game. Significance of that being that Sam Allison is black. He's going to be. He's not the first black referee in the Premier League, but it's the first referee in 15 years. I mean, that is again.
Do you know who the first one was?
I do know who the first one was. Yeah. Uriah Heep was the first.
Uriah Rennie.
Oh, Uriah Heep's from Oliver Twist, isn't he, or something like that?
Oh dear! Oh, Ed, what a faux pas!
Well, I mean, if I'm going to make a mistake about it, make a mistake with a sort of a literature reference isn't exactly the worst one you can make.
How very home counters of you, sir.
Exactly, and I'm also, because you've mentioned the fact you're an actor, darling, that it's difficult not for me to think about.
Did I mention
these things?
Accent?
You did mention.
Is that something I said? That doesn't sound like me.
And so, I mean, again, it's quite remarkable, isn't it, that he is the first one in 15 years. And until 4 years ago, he was the only black ref in the top 4 divisions in the UK.
Wow,
I mean,
that's quite a shocking stat.
Quite unbelievable. And there are still only a very small handful of non-white referees still. Again, quite worrying. And I don't know quite what's going on to try and I know that Howard Webb is talking constantly about sort of wanted to diversify the top of the game, but one woman and one black male is not exactly a resounding success. But anyway, so it's progress.
It is a start. It's progress. And we can only hope it continues from there, and at least the energy behind it is there, which is always a positive thing.
Next piece of news, we should mention the video that we posted on TikTok.
We should.
Was it from the French league that
Are you talking? There were 2 we need to go through. You're talking about the free kick.
I'm talking about the free kick. Yeah.
I think it was from the Europa League.
Oh, was it? It was the French team playing. Was it Rennes were playing, weren't they?
Yes.
And if you haven't seen it, you'll find it on our TikTok feed. Our TikTok account, Adam, is
at Red or Yellow Pod.
Red or Yellow Pod, and we posted this week. Terry brought our attention to it early on this week and asked us to look at the footage and asked us if we could work out why the goal had been disallowed. And
immediately you can see the advantages of us having a producer.
Exactly. Let's see. There we go. He's been with us a few days and he's already made us better. But and because you'll see when you watch the footage, so there's a spoiler here now. So if you haven't watched the footage yet, now would be the time to pause the podcast, go to our TikTok account, or Google disallowed Rennes Europa League goal. So I'm going to keep talking on the basis that you've been and seen it. But what's interesting is Terry invited us to have a look at it to try and work out why the goal had been disallowed. And when you watch the footage, goals disallowed, commentators then start talking, and they're obviously all looking at where's the offside decision, and they're looking at every phase of this build up to this goal saying, oh, he's not offside there. He's not offside there. And I got completely drawn in by that. And I'm thinking it's offside somewhere. And I'm looking at it thinking this is not offside. And then Adam had a look at it and Adam said straight away what the answer was. Which
immediately, I had to watch literally the first 3 seconds and I knew what it was. I'm not saying I'm better than the guy who refereed that game, but no, to be fair, they got it right as well. What I would say is, so it's kind of a double jeopardy thing, right? So the guy takes the free kick hits the crossbar, it rebounds out, and then he touches it again.
Yeah.
And play continues. Now, the referee probably shouldn't have let play continue.
No.
Probably should have stopped it when the offence occurred. But I think the thing with the offside that affected him was the fact, or the reason everyone was looking for an offside, is the fact that he put his arm in the air for an indirect free kick, I think, which didn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, and I originally thought it was an indirect free kick as well. I couldn't, but it can't have been because he was obviously shooting on goal. But I think I don't think the referee could have spotted it because he let the play continue. He's obviously been told about it on his comms that the player, so the answer is quite simple. What happened is the player took the free kick, it rebounds against the crossbar, comes back to him outside the 18-yard box, and without any other player touching the ball, he then kicks it again. Yeah, which obviously you can't do. So, but it was interesting. Yeah, so it's worth a watch. Who had a look at it? As I say, you'll find it on our TikTok account.
God, can I just say on that as well? It clearly goes to show how poor media are, commentators, etc., in knowing the laws of the game, and also how poor players are in knowing the laws of the game. And this is a key example for you out on the field, right? Like, you are the authority. You will have to make decisions that nobody else is aware of. And being able to make those decisions is what defines you as a referee and makes you a better referee. So I think just be aware of that. Like, when you listen to what media have to say about decisions referees have done and stuff, just always have like your referee's hat on. Hang on, what are they talking about? Are they being accurate with things like laws of the game? Because this is what forms a lot of the conversation around football in pubs, on the street, amongst fans. And it's all so wrong. So, from a factual point of view as a referee, like, take on that societal role and just correct things and just have that antenna up. Commentators know nothing about the laws of the game. Pundits know nothing about the laws of the game. And they're the ones who drive these kinds of conversations. And it makes our life harder. So use those moments to correct people and to just be honest. And also, when you're on the field, you may have to make brave decisions like that. The good news about this is they got the right decision eventually. They got there as a team. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why we have 4 officials on a game.
I think what didn't help in the situation was that the referee let play continue. There's then about 3 attempts to get the ball in the box.
Gets scored.
And then a goal gets scored.
In the 96th
minute.
Yeah.
I mean, it's which does tell you that the referee obviously didn't spot it, because you would not have let those 3 or 4 little forays into the box have gone on and then somebody scoring. And that's why there was the confusion, because the referee hadn't stopped it when the ball had immediately gone back to the player to take the free kick, which he should have done, because there's no issue then that it's a free kick. But anyway, it was an interesting one. I was just going to mention very briefly, Adam, in other news, Arteta, because we spoke a while ago about Arteta's reaction. I'm sure listeners remember about how he reacted after the some sort of dubious VAR decision making in the game Arsenal playing against Newcastle. It was that one where
goal where he's pushed him in the back to score the goal.
Yeah, was the ball out of play? Did he push him in the back? Is it offside? I mean, the one that went on for ages. Anyway, after the game, Arteta said that the refereeing was an embarrassment and a disgrace. Now, you might think that would be, something which would render you liable to a sanction from the FA, but apparently it was argued on his behalf successfully. People can't see my raised eyebrow when I said that.
And the eye roll.
His understanding of the word disgrace, ready for this? Sounds like the dog at my homework, is that the word desgracia in Spanish has connotations not of contempt, dishonor, or disrespect, which is how an English person mean it, but has connotations of misfortune, tragedy, or bad luck. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty certain that he knew what he was saying. I'm pretty certain that he wasn't saying, what a tragedy that was that we conceded the goal, and what terrible bad luck it is.
I feel like Hamlet.
Yes, it's such an awful tragedy. No one's to blame. It's just a terrible tragedy. I mean, I think we all know exactly what he meant. And if we didn't know what he meant, the fact that Arsenal then came out with a press release afterwards, which again I thought was embarrassing, in which the Arsenal came out and said, Arsenal Football Club wholeheartedly support Mikel Arteta's post-match comments after yet more unacceptable refereeing and VAR errors on Saturday evening. So they had no doubt what he meant. But poor Mikel, he didn't understand that disgrace didn't mean disgracia. No sanction for Arteta.
I mean, coming out and saying that we all need to work together. You're right, we do. And I think you'll find the referees have been saying that for a very, very, very long time. And it's interesting that it takes you to be in front of a disciplinary board in order to say that. I'd also say, I think he'd have a great defence had he not spent the last, 25, 30 years of his life in England. I'm pretty sure his English is as good as his Spanish now, but there we go.
Yeah. And you could tell what his sentiment was. It wasn't talking about bad luck.
No.
I think we all agree. But anyway, there we go. One final thing, maybe debate for another day. But IFAB, as they do, are meeting to talk about rule changes for next year or law changes next year. We've already mentioned, I think, last week about how they're sort of considering the semi-automatic offside decision, which we've seen at the Euros before. Also talking about sin bins, which we talked about last week. But bizarrely, I mean, if refereeing wasn't complicated enough, they're thinking about the introduction of an orange card, which would be a bit of a bloody disaster for our podcast name, Adam. But, I mean, when I read this news, I thought, bloody hell. I mean, that's not very...
I've got another name up my sleeve, which we can change it to.
But so apparently they're talking about wanting to have orange cards for offences falling short of red cards, such as dragging back a player from a promising attack, which isn't a dogso situation. I mean, honestly, I despair sometimes.
But where do you define that line? Like, that's hard. That's just making everything so much more subjective for a referee, and that's the last thing we want.
They gave an example from the Euro finals, whether it was England, Italy, or whatever, where Chiellini was it pulled back? I mean,
that's
Saka it was ridiculous, but it was on the halfway line. It wasn't a red card offence, but so that's a great example of what might be an orange card situation. But nothing's as clear cut as those sorts of examples. So I mean, It seems to be complete madness. When everything's going wrong with VAR, let's introduce something new to take people's minds off it with orange cards. Anyway.
And wait, did you see the handball from the A-League?
I did see the handball. Yeah. We also put that on our TikTok account as well, didn't we, Adam?
We did. Yeah, so our TikTok, a little, put your teeth in, Adam. Our TikTok has been busy this weekend.
It has been busy.
Which is great.
It is great. And Terry's been doing some great work behind the scenes to try and help improve our TikTok and social media content going forward. But that was another interesting clip. So again, if you haven't seen it, go and have a look. It's on our account. And I think in short, the goalkeeper comes way out of his area.
And gets caught handling the ball.
Gets caught handling the ball. I don't know, what's your take on it, Adam? What did you think?
Oh, it's definitely a red card. I think a couple of things. When we look at Dogso, we look at a set of considerations: defenders, distance, direction, and control. Player has control. The defenders, there are defenders in the screen, but if you're shooting from where the handball happens, the defenders aren't getting to that ball. They're not able to make a play on the ball at all, so they're technically out of the equation. If the goalkeeper doesn't touch the ball, there's a shot on goal. And whether it's a deliberate handball or not is kind of irrelevant because it's still a Dogso, it's still a handball. But I suppose no, that's not true because it has to be a deliberate handball in order for it to be an offence. And there's a screenshot where you kind of see him kind of drop his shoulder into it. He's also wrong-footed as a goalkeeper, and a goalkeeper out that far from goal is, the barrier is so much higher. If he uses his hands, we're all going to think, hang on, what's he using his hands for that far out of goal in that position compared to a player? I know there shouldn't be different rules for goalkeepers, but there just kind of is in terms of the way football is expected.
I think what did it for me was the fact that you see now all the time, whenever a defender's sort of trying to block the ball or they can see the ball might be coming towards them, they're super alive now to the fact that got to be really careful where my arms are, and they're sort of trying to tuck them away. And for him, when you look at it, I mean, it wasn't in an unnatural position because it is still largely by his side, but for a goalkeeper,
he's expanding, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
I get it. I think the fact it was a Dogzo 2 doesn't help his case. We had a few questions on it from some loyal listeners.
Very good.
Aaron just asked a question, like, given the speed of the ball on which it's hit, the close proximity, could he have done any more with his arm not being in an unnatural position? He said he just felt it was very harsh. I understand that argument, but I think all of the considerations are met here for Dogzo. And I also think, goalkeeper out that far, if it hits his hand, he's going to be in trouble. He just is.
Yeah, and I think that as a goalkeeper that if you come out, you're going to be scrutinised for what happens with your hands and arms. And for me, again, he was. Aaron's right to say that because he wasn't that far away from the keeper, but I felt that the keeper
made a play on the ball. He could have easily avoided using his hands.
Yeah, that's my view.
I know, and someone else just mentioned there's too many defenders, but that's just not relevant here because they.
I mean, there are defenders, but none of them are going to go stop the goal going in.
Defenders can't run faster than the ball once it's shot, and they can't play on the ball based on where players. So it's just not a relevant. Well, it is a relevant consideration. They're not relevant in taking it away from being a Dogzo.
Cool. So I think that's the news for this week, Adam. We ought to move on to our post bag.
Our loyal listeners.
Terry will already start to sweat because we're 30 minutes in and we haven't done the post bag, we haven't done the law, we haven't done fun facts.
Our producer's giving us the hurry up. I can hear him in my ear.
I can see him sort of giving us the wind up figure off screen to tell us to sort of wrap it up a bit quicker. But I think we've done pretty well to get through the news in only 30 minutes.
Big news item. Yeah.
Big news week.
Right.
We picked 2 listener questions this week. Which one did you want to deal with, Adam?
Should we go with Australia?
Yeah, you're pretty well placed to deal with that. So who's that from? What did they say?
One of our loyal listeners, Mr. John Newstead. Thanks for listening and hope you're enjoying the podcast. So when you moved to Oz, Adam, did you have to start at the bottom again? Or did they put you at a level that was similar to what you originally had in the UK? Which is a great question.
Very good question.
I get a lot
of questions. Bear in mind, so many people seem to be wanting to move from the UK to Australia.
I think the conversation about snakes and spiders at the start of this podcast and having to get right on lawnmowers might put people off. There we go.
So what level were you when you last refereed in the UK?
I was a level 4 referee.
And had your sort of level 4 lapsed, or were you still sort of you were still a level 4 referee, but when you moved to Australia?
Well, I mean, I was inactive, that's for sure. I don't know whether it lapsed or not, but I had to go to the FA and get a letter of introduction, which is basically where they write that I was a referee, I was at this level, I was qualified, I'd done this, and this, and then hand that over to Football Queensland. That let Football Queensland know that I wasn't lying, and then all of my qualifications transferred. So here the system's a little bit different. A level 4 referee is the lowest level of referee you can be. It's like the lowest accreditation we have, and then we go level 4, 3, 2, 1. And level 2 gets you into kind of like semi-professional football in Queensland, which is known as FQPL 1, FQPL 2, FQPL 3. You can kind of do those. So I started on FQPL 3 on the South Coast and then did a season basically on that with a couple of FQPL 2 games, I think. And then last season I was pretty much an FQPL 1 referee, and next season I'll be going hopefully into FQPL 1 again, maybe the NPL, which would be a lot of fun. So it's
NPL being
National Premier League, but I only do that. It's the highest level of football in the state of Queensland. Oh, it's not like I'll go down to Melbourne and do things. I'll only be in Queensland. But yeah, and then teams from there, if they build up enough of a base and stuff, I suppose they probably would have a case to go into the A League at some point. I don't really know. But then the next step for NPL referee would be going into sort of the A League and being recognised by Football Australia. So it's quite a high level. I feel like it's similar. I feel like it's probably NPL is probably a bit of a step up to where I left off in the UK. So I've had to build on it, but yeah, I'd say it was equivocal. It's hard because it's not a like-for-like system, so it's hard to say. but we do definitely recognise the levels of referees, and we kind of take that into account. And then obviously, because I was inactive, I was like, just keep me at this level for a while and just let me get my feet back and find what I'm doing again. And it's a bit different over here. Like cultural changes and things like that are a bit different. So it took a bit of adaptation, which I needed. But yeah, I think generally people within a couple of months saw what I was like, and I was finding my feet again, and it was all coming back to me. And what was nice about here compared to the UK was I was able to just do middle after middle after middle after middle, and I just really sharpened those tools. Whereas in the UK, when you're level 4, it's middle every 4 to 6 weeks, and everything else is assisting. So that was quite nice.
I mean, the good thing is that it means that people going from here to Australia can continue on their sort of referee journey. So
Absolutely.
that's the good news. I mean, you sort of talk when you sort of mentioned the A-League as though you almost sound a bit dismissive as your prospects. But I mean, you're how old now, Adam?
I'm old. I'm 30.
Not in refereeing terms, but how old are you now?
I'm 36.
36.
37 next year. Yeah.
I mean, do you really genuinely think that is sort of beyond your possibilities or not?
I don't think it's beyond my possibilities. I think it's a race against time in terms of being recognized like at a high enough level in order to get into the A, like basically Football Australia don't know who I am, so I'd have to go, hey, and they have to recognize me and check me over. I've not done a season on the NPL yet, so you've obviously got to build that kind of experience and show you can handle that next level up of games, and you need to be experienced in that, so that's a couple of years. And also the other thing you have to remember is that A-League isn't it's not like the Premier League. There's not like 20 teams. So there's less games in general.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other really good officials here. So who probably are a bit younger than me and probably, would be looked at first. Like I am struggling with injuries every now and then, which doesn't help. So like, you never say never. Anything is possible. But, I just think I'm not sure I want to chase it. Do you know what I mean? If it happens, great. But I'd be very happy just sticking to where I'm at and just doing the level I do. And honestly, it is a really high, good level.
But the two refs we talked about at the top of the show, the first female ref and the first or second black referee. I mean, Rebecca is 40, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that Sam Allison is 42. So
the average age of Premier League officials is 42 and a half, I think.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well, not beyond the realms of possibility, Adam.
Yeah, I just want to work hard and not worry about thinking about what might or might not happen. Just control what's under my control, and just stick at FQPL 1, stick at NPL, and just do a good job there. And hopefully, I'll get recognised. I believe in the prospects of a meritocracy. Let's just keep going there.
And so the other listener question was the one we got emailed to us, Adam. So Rob Betts emailed in. Hello, Rob. Rob said that he's a level 7 referee, I think he said. And he was asking, or he in fact, he emailed in about sort of a tip for beginner referees. And we've had a lot of these coming in, and we're going to keep, I think, referring to some or all of them as they come in because they're all really, really helpful. But Rob said his tip for beginner referees in relation to infringements taking place on the edge of the box. He says sometimes it can be a bit unclear as to whether or not an infringement has occurred within the penalty area or not, and therefore is it a free kick or is it a penalty, especially on some sort of poor grass pitches where the lines or pitch markings are not as clear as they might be. And his suggestion is that you should stop play, head exactly to where the offence was, and then you can make your decision on whether it's a penalty or a free kick once you're on the spot. Which makes me kind of think about what we were talking about last week with Terry about positioning, Adam, because if you're sort of keeping up and keeping close to play, then I think that what Rob's saying is a really good idea, because you can be on that spot very, very quickly if you're keeping up with play.
Yeah.
And then whatever your decision is, whether it be a penalty kick or a free kick, you're going to be able to sell it along more easily because you're right there. I think if what Rob's saying is perhaps slightly more problematic if you're a bit of a distance away,
Yep.
because if you're viewing it all from a bit of a distance, and then there's a delay from you getting from where you sort of blown up to where you think the infringement took place, and you haven't by that stage indicated whether it's a penalty or free kick.
Yeah.
Everybody starts to question as whether you'd actually know yourself what it is. So I think
one of the important things that he brings up here is like, it's okay to take your time. Like if you're unsure and stuff, just blow your whistle, recognize the foul, because that's, if you don't recognize that, that's when you're going to have bigger problems. And then you can, just buy yourself some time. And by buying yourself some time, you can then develop into something a bit clearer and a bit better, which is what you need to do sometimes. So that's I think kind of what he's getting at here, which is a really
I agree.
good tip.
And he's really sort of picking up on two of the key things which we've said before, which is, keeping up with the play, getting sort of close to where the decisions are being made, and again, sort of taking your time on things. And it was nice that Rob said that he appreciated one of the things that we spoke about before when we were talking about positioning on the pitch, and you're saying about getting sort of wide and deep. And it was nice for him to say that he was sort of had that in his mind when he refereed his last game, kind of, made him think about getting into the corners and better positioning. And so it's nice to hear that people are sort of putting in practice some of the stuff we've talked about and actually feeling some benefit from it. And interestingly, those who listened last week will remember Terry was talking about heat maps and sort of, the general aversion that he had and I have into getting into the penalty area. And he shared with us his heat map, I think, from his most recent game, which had shown him making quite significant sort of encroachments into the penalty area. And he already told us last week that, he felt that was improving his game by sort of being, much closer to the action, especially in those critical areas where, is it a penalty or not? Is it a corner or not? So good. Nice to hear that, some of the tips we give out are proving useful to people.
And thanks for emailing in. It's always nice to
thanks
hear
very
from our
much.
loyal listeners. It's always nice to hear. So that's great.
If we don't deal with your email or question sort of in the first episode after you sent it in to us, don't panic, because we keep a record of all. Sometimes we sort of want to hold them back for other occasions when there might be a more relevant guest to deal with them, or they might be relevant to a law we're going to deal with. We try to cover as many as we can. If we don't deal with it in the next episode, don't panic. We'll hopefully come to it at some point in the future.
And if we don't, blame our producer.
Yeah, exactly. It's all his fault. We're now devoid of responsibility now that someone else is running this podcast. We haven't done a law in a long time, Adam.
I know.
Given that was the idea of this podcast originally, we haven't done a law for a very long time. The good news is that we're now on to Law 50, which is excitingly titled The Throw In. And the throw-in can be dealt with pretty quickly because it's probably one of the shortest. Not sure if it's the shortest, but it's definitely one of the shortest. And I don't think anything we're going to say
is going to be
recital of the laws is going to be earth-shattering or take anybody enormously by surprise. At least I hope it's not, because as we're going to come to in the fun facts later on, throw-ins are things that happen a lot in matches, so you should be knowing what the law is. So obviously a throw-in's awarded to the opponent, the player who last touched the ball, when the whole of the ball passes over the touchline, whether that be on the ground or in the air. And the key point to remember is a goal cannot be scored directly from a throw-in. Adam, what happens if I take a throw-in and it goes into the opponent's goal without anybody else touching it?
It's a goal kick.
And what happens if I take a throw-in, Adam, and I throw it back to my keeper and it goes into my goal that we're defending without anybody touching? It's a corner kick. Those are the small little fact. I don't think I've ever seen a ball going into the defensive goal. No,
I've not seen that. I've seen a throw directly into a goal, and it took some figuring out. I'm not going to lie. Up into All-Stars it was, and it took some figuring out because it went through a lot of bodies and players, and I kind of had to take a moment, similar to what Rob was talking about. Like I had to take a moment and just calm everything down, look at the reaction of players, look into their eyes a little bit and go, no, I think on the balance of better judgment here, that definitely didn't touch someone as it went through.
The problem is, it's when those come in and there's sort of a lot of bodies, sort of in and around the 60-yard box.
Absolutely.
And having this, that degree of certainty to say no one has touched it, because it is rather unusual that something comes in like that, whether it be a cross, a corner, or free kick, and without it getting a touch from somebody. But anyway, so that's always worth knowing. So the next part is entitled procedure, which, as I say, I'm not sure this really adds very much to this, but it says at the moment of delivering the ball, the thrower must. This bit sort of puzzled me a bit. It said must stand facing the field of play.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not quite sure. How you do a throw in without facing the field of play, and it also, by suggesting that, suggests that you kind of have to be sort of a sort of a right angle to the field of play. But we know that's not the case. But I'm just not sure what that really is telling us. What scenario is it trying to prevent from occurring?
You can't throw it with your back facing play. That's it. I know it might sound ridiculous, but you'd be surprised.
Well, I'd love to know how you'd be able to throw a ball from behind your head, facing away from the pitch. But there we go.
Someone was there. It's about slowing the game down, isn't it? Cool.
You must have part of each foot on the touchline or on the ground outside the touchline. So you can have your foot, part of your foot on the touchline. That's not a problem.
Part of each foot. So both feet have to be in contact with the floor.
Yeah, both feet have to be in touch with the floor. And then you have to throw the ball with both hands from behind and over the head from the point of where it left the field of play. And that's the bit that I think...
And over the head.
Yeah, so that's where most foul throws come from. In the professional game, when you're watching on TV, it's not people sort of lifting their leg up. That's not what happens. It's almost always because they release the ball sort of in front of their head or on top of their head, not from behind the head.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the most common thing in football. Yeah. Grassroots is probably this pretty similar, isn't it? Occasionally
it's just they're not taking it back far enough. They'll just throw it from there, kind of like, let's say from there. I can't this is a podcast, Adam, but like from the forehead, and then they'll throw it in kind of in line with the forehead. Whereas it's got to come from kind of behind the crown of the head. I'd say is thrown
from behind and coming over the head. That's the easiest word to remember. Opponents must be at least 2 meters away from the point in the touchline where the throw is to be taken. The ball's in play when it enters the field of play, but it's obviously needs to be retaken if it touches the ground before entering. That perhaps goes without saying. And when a throw in is not taken correctly, it's retaken by the opposition team. And then this is slightly weird. If a player, while correctly taking a throw, deliberately throws the ball at an opponent in order to play the ball again, but not in a careless or reckless manner, or using excessive force, the referee allows play to continue.
That's fair.
I guess what's that? So you
that's
sort of throw it against their leg.
Yeah, that's no different to it's no different to in play. If a player kicks a ball player and it goes to win a throw, it's no different. It's just a case of you can't do it in an aggressive manner. It's just a case of massaging the game. Yeah.
And a throw must not touch.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
I was going to say the thrower must not touch the ball again until it's touched another player, which, what were you saying is interesting?
I was just going to say, at the minute, one of the big things you hear with it is you can't throw the ball on meekly, like it has to come on with energy. And I like that in my games, just because it looks better and it just feels better, and you kind of want the game to restart with a bit of flow. But nowhere in there does it say the ball has to come in at a particular speed or with a particular force or similar to a pass. It's a very hard thing to judge. So if a player does, as long as it comes from behind the head and launches it in the right way, I mean, that would generate an element of force. But as long as that procedure is in place, it doesn't matter what the speed of the ball is, interestingly, despite what players and coaches and everything else will try and dupe you into believing.
And then finally, it just deals with offences and sanctions. So if after the ball's in play, the thrower touches the ball again before it's touched another player, then that's an indirect free kick. And if the thrower commits a handball offence, then it's a direct free kick. It is really the sort of main thrust of that section. And then an opponent who unfairly distracts or impedes a thrower, including moving closer than the 2 meters from where it's being taken, is cautioned for unsporting behaviour. And if the throw has been taken, it's an indirect free kick. There we go.
That's the throw-in. That was nice and easy, wasn't it?
That was nice
15 done.
Terry's going to be getting excited now because he's thinking just fun facts left. We might come in under the hour.
I was just going to say with the with the throw in, obviously, like the key things are a lot of time wasting and going to get a throw, going to get the ball. So just be aware of that as a referee. That's the main thing. And the other thing is making sure that it gets taken at the point in which the ball crossed the touchline within reason. You don't want people taking 20 meters, but they can probably take 1 or 2, depending on where it is in the field. With that, it's like a line, isn't it? It's a line of pressure. So the closer to the attacking goal, the more strict you probably want to be with where they take the throw.
We've definitely talked about this before, about sort of how strict you are in terms of where the throw is taken from. If the team taking the throw and sort of play to go to throw it back to their direction of their defenders, you're going to be less worried about where it's been taken as opposed to a throw that might lead to a goal. Then you want to be a little bit stricter. But yeah, that's something we've definitely talked about before.
Absolutely right.
So there we go. That's our law done, Adam. There's only one thing left.
I know. Cue jingle.
It's now time for Eds Fun Facts.
Well, you wouldn't believe how difficult it is to try and get anything near to what might be described as fun facts for the law of the throw-in. But have I ever let you down, Adam? So here we go. And then I've got quite a few, so I'm going to have to rattle through them so that we get in within our time slot. The first thing I want to ask you is, do you know who it is that holds the world record for the longest throw-in? That's the first question. Because
is he Brazilian?
No, he's not Brazilian. So the answer is no, you don't know who he is. He is someone called, apologies for my pronunciation, he's Danish, Thomas Grunemark, I think is the correct pronunciation. The reason why I thought you might have heard of him is because he has attracted a fair bit of media attention for reasons which I'll go into in a moment. But do you know what his the record is for the Guinness World Record is for the longest throw-in by Thomas Grunemark? What distance do you think it was?
I don't know, like 3/4 of the length of a pitch. So what would that be?
It's not quite
that far.
That far.
Half of a pitch.
So what's the length of half a pitch, Adam?
I don't know. My knowledge of Law 1, I need to go back to the history.
So don't answer questions with a reference to something you don't know and exposing our lack of knowledge.
Well, it's not something as a referee.
We have to start Law 1 again in 3 weeks.
I'm just looking it up now. Dimensions. Minimum 90 meters. 90 meters is the minimum.
Okay.
Maximum is 120 meters. So,
right, so between 90 and 120 meters.
60 meters.
So interestingly, his world record is 51.33 meters.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
I mean, that's as the article which I read about this was saying. That's it's just slightly longer than an Olympic swimming pool, and I think most of us can probably sort of picture that sort of distance. So I mean, it is a pretty big throw. I think when he broke the record, he did one of those throws, where they sort of do a sort of somersault. They somersault the ball on the ground and then generate some energy doing that. And he was given a bit of help because he's not a slim fella, Thomas. I think he weighs about 100 kilos. But he's a very interesting career. He played as a semi-professional footballer, but also has worked with the Danish gymnastics team for a period of time as well.
That's amazing.
But yeah, so and what speed do you think he generated? I've only got the speed in kilometers per hour, I'm afraid.
Okay.
But what speed do you think he generated in that throw?
14 kilometers an hour.
14?
Yeah.
What 1-4?
Yeah, is that fast or is that slow? I have no idea.
That's like 8 or 9 miles per hour.
So is that quick? That's slow, right? That would be slow. All right, let's go.
That would be slow. Let's try again.
That's slow. All right, let's try again. I don't know, 22 kilometers an hour.
No, do you know what the speed he generated on that throw
50
was?
kilometers. No, clearly I don't. That much is obvious of the last 2 minutes of this recording.
But for dramatic effect, I was trying to show how badly out you were, you see. The speed of his throw was 100 kilometers an hour.
Are you kidding me?
100 kilometers an hour, which in the newspaper article which I was reading about, it said that's the equivalent speed that a cyclist does a mountain descent in the Tour de France. Just think about that. You've seen that on the TV.
That's crazy.
100 kilometers an hour.
No
And
wonder,
apparently-
no wonder you were so stunned by 14.
Well, exactly. But interestingly, they said that a normal high-quality throw-in registers at about 75 kilometers an hour, which I thought was interesting.
Really?
But just to put into context as to how good Thomas was, Rory Delat. So whenever we think about Premier League footballers who are good at throw-ins, Rory Delat used to play for Stoke, always comes up. Rory was a schoolboy national javelin champion, which is interesting. But he averaged, bear in mind we just about the world record of 51.33, he averaged 38 meters in his throw-ins. And his average speed was about 60 kilometers an hour. That's 37 miles per hour. So it just shows you how impressive Thomas Grunemark is. Now, the reason why I thought you might have heard about Thomas before is because he began working for Liverpool in 2018 as a throw-in specialist coach.
There you go.
Having worked for various clubs in Denmark and had a great deal of success in helping clubs create more goals through throw-ins, he is a specialist throw-in coach. I think he's still employed by Liverpool. I'm pretty sure he is. But he's fascinating. He's a really interesting chap if you want to Google him. He reckons that since the age of 10, he has spent about 30 to 40,000 hours perfecting his technique. So he says he reckons he spent 3 or 4 years of his life doing this.
There's a theory on that, isn't there? Is it something like I can't remember what it's called, but it's we've mentioned it before.
It's like Matthew Syed's theory, isn't it, about how if you
get
good at something, you just have to
hours of practice.
Just have to do it lots and lots and lots. What's really interesting is that I mean, it's not really surprising that there is a thing such as a sort of throw-in coach, because if you think about it, I read a study that was published in a magazine done by some researchers at Sheffield Hallam University, who were talking about. Well, let me ask you, what percentage of goals? They did a study on the MLS football, and what percentage of goals do you think came from set plays, Adam?
In the MLS?
Yeah, they did a study over a period of years in the MLS. I think it was from 2015 to 2019. And there was the number of goals that came from set plays. That's corners.
I'm thinking somewhere around 62%.
No, it's not as high as that, but I mean, it's still quite significant, 30 to 40%. And so that makes it all the more bizarre, really, that bear in mind that throw-ins are a set play that you can prepare for and train for, that no one had really ever thought before this chap came along about coaching people. You know, he talked about how he'd go to football clubs and that no one had ever coached a throw-in. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
No, I can believe that.
And these people who did this study from Sheffield Hallam University, looking at the MLS in 2015 to 2019, they how many throw-ins do you think there were per game, Adam? On average, in the MLS, 2015, 2019, average number of throw-ins per game.
32?
It's higher than that, 44 per game. 5% of all passes, if you sort of call a throw-in a pass, 5% of all passes in every match are throw-ins, which makes it, again, all the more surprising that people don't really focus on this before. And just compare that with the other sort of set plays. So corners, on average, 10 a game in the MLS that period. Free kicks between 23 and 35. Goal kicks, 17. So it's the most significant set play that takes place within a game. And they did similar studies and looked at the Premier League in 2018 to 2019. They found, again, an average of 43 per match, so pretty similar to the MLS. And it's interesting, they for that period of time, they did a breakdown of the number of throws that every team got on average per game. And it was, as you'd expect, really, pretty much every team had the same number of throw-ins consistently throughout the season, ranging from an average of 19 throws per team per game to up to 23. So everybody was coming in sort of around that sort of 20, 21 mark. And what was interesting from the Sheffield Hallam research was that there is a correlation between the highest placed teams in divisions and teams that have throw-ins where the first contact, that is sort of the receiving player, is successful, where the possession is retained following a throw-in, the length of time that they're in possession after a throw-in, and shot creation rates are all consistent with the teams that come highest in the leagues. And so, as I say, the weird thing was that it seems that no one before Thomas Gronemark came along was looking into this, and the Sheffield Hallam research says, surprising we don't see more. And I think that's probably something which other clubs have addressed as well.
Absolutely
so
right.
There we go. Those are my fun facts for this week, Adam.
Excellent. And that's it.
I think we've come close to keeping it under an hour.
Terry will be pleased. What an influence he's had.
And he'll be very happy. Down from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, just with his mere intervention. The
Excellent.
power that he wields.
The power of Mr. Connolly.
Well, we should say to people, we are going to work hard on our socials over the coming weeks with Terry's help. So we're going to be posting more videos, more listener questions posed by us to you to get your interaction with some of the things that happen in the refereeing world. And so keep an eye out at Red or Yellow Pod on Twitter, at Red or Yellow Pod on TikTok, and on Instagram, Adam, we are
at Red or Yellow Pod.
And if people want to email us, just remind people of the email address.
redorYellowpod@gmail.com.
There we go. Couldn't be easier to get in touch with us. So please do get in touch.
Please
We'd
do.
love to have
share clips, ask for help. Let us try and help you as much as we can. It'd be great.
Just tell us what you enjoy about the pod, what you'd like to see more of, what you don't like, and we'll do our best to try.
What if they say I don't like Adam and they just get rid of me?
Well, it's easy. That's fine. We can sort that out. I've got a new producer to help me create the show.
Oh wow!
Honestly, a couple of episodes people only remember.
On that note, we shall say goodbye, Edward.
Couldn't do it without you, Adam.
Are you a bit snarky today because you've not been drinking wine the whole episode?
Yeah, do you notice that? I've been drinking on squash. I'm going cycling early tomorrow morning. So
lovely.
I'm at home, being sensible. We're going to watch a bit of TV, early to bed, and go for another cycle tomorrow morning. There we go. Right, Adam, lovely to see you. Have a lovely day, and speak to you soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for making it to the end of another episode of Red or Yellow. You're clearly a very fit listener. May I gently remind you to like and subscribe to this podcast in your podcast app. That way, when we release a new episode, our meandering chats will magically appear on your phone. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with one of your friends when they ask for a podcast recommendation. Word of mouth goes a long way, and no more so than yours. Don't forget, you can get 10% off any refereeing equipment that you might need if you head to processports.com and use the code RedOrYellow10 at checkout. Thank you so much for listening this week, and don't forget to follow us on social media. It's at Red or Yellow Pod, and please feel free to send us any questions that you may have via DM, or you can email redorYellowpod@gmail.com. We cannot wait to speak to you again very, very soon. Ciao, ciao.